So if I have a right to keep and bear arms, then I don't require a concealed carry permit. They are contradictions in terms. Did George Washington and Thomas Jefferson have gun permits? No, it was ridiculous. I mean, you were required to have a gun, basically, to defend the United States. So, if they didn't have a gun permit, and we do now, where was the first gun permit? When did we write the first gun permit? Just after what we call the Civil War. It's actually the war between the states. If you have a right to do something, you don't have to ask for permission. White people had rights. Black people were slaves. They had no rights. Well, we passed the 13th Amendment, which says there's no more slavery. Well, gosh, if there's no more slavery, then blacks and whites are all the same, right? So you're going to give the black people guns after you've just had them in chains? And I don't think so. They may be a little upset with us. Giving them a gun may not be a real good idea this week. And so what we did was we gave blacks privileges. Okay? Well, this guy's not going to be really angry with it. We'll let him do it, but not this guy over here, because I can still see in his eyes he's angry. So blacks were given privileges with the 14th Amendment. How about a marriage license? Did Thomas Jefferson and George Washington have a marriage license? No. Today, just about everybody has one. Where was the first marriage license? Right after the Civil War. If two white people want to get married and have children, they have a right to do that. They can do anything they want with their property. Now, whites don't have to ask anybody for permission. Blacks we really didn't care. Two black people wanted to get together. We basically considered that animal husbandry. But what if a black person and a white person want to get married? Oh gosh, we can't have that. We can't allow a mixing of the races now, can we? The white person can do anything they want. The black person can't. The black person has to get permission. So the first marriage licenses were permission for interracial marriages. And I have a copy of Black's Law Dictionary. Now this is Black's Law 3rd edition. This is about 1870s, I think, somewhere in that time frame. And so it's an old book, and I've gotten a copy of it, and I've looked up marriage license. And it says, quote, a license or permission granted by public authority to persons who intend to intermarry. Right there in black and white. A marriage license is for mixed marriages. Well, eventually that was working so well that we just apply a marriage license to everybody. Why do you need permission? If you go to a wedding, how many people are in that contract? Well, you got the man, you got the woman, but that's not all. You've also got the state. The state is there giving you permission. Why? Because you asked. If you ask for permission, that's pretty good evidence that you needed permission. Why would you ask for permission if you don't need it? So you've got the man, the woman, and the state. There are 3 entities in this contract. So now the state has a vested interest in the outcome of this contract. Well, what is the general outcome of a marriage contract? You put a boy and a girl in a dark room for long enough, what's going to happen? Children. So now the state, because they are vested in this contract, they have a vested interest in the children. How can this social worker come to your door and say, you're not being a good parent, and take your kids away? Because they own them. If you have a marriage license, the state has partial ownership in your children. That's how they can demand that your children go to school. They want their children in school, government schools. Now, if you don't get a marriage license, if you just say, hey, you're pretty good looking, you want to sleep together? What do they call that? That's a common law marriage. That's probably the only phrase where anybody knows the phrase common law. Well, what is common law? Well, gosh, I don't know. That's what two people... No, it's not. Two people get married. It is a common law marriage because it is based on property. Another person that you have heard of, I'm sure, is Daniel Webster. And Daniel says, I apprehend no danger to our country from a foreign foe. Our destruction, should it come at all, will be from another quarter. From the inattention of the people to the concerns of their government. From their carelessness and negligence, I must confess that I do apprehend some danger. I fear that they may place too implicit a confidence in their public servants, and fail properly to scrutinize their conduct. That in this way they may be made the dupes of designing men, and become the instruments of their own undoing. Make them intelligent, and they will be vigilant. Give them the means of detecting the wrong, and they will apply the remedy. So my purpose here is to try to make you intelligent. A right is defined as a power, privilege, faculty, or demand inherent in one person and incident upon another. Generally defined as powers of free action. Something that you have the sovereign authority to do because there is no higher authority to get permission from. There's nobody to ask. You've heard the expression, the buck stops here. That means you're it. You make the final decisions. That's what sovereignty is all about. You are endowed by your Creator with certain unalienable rights. You don't have to ask. Now, this is the exact opposite of a privilege. The government is going to make your life as miserable as they possibly can because you are not following the system, and that's what they want. They want you to follow the system because that way they can control you and put you where they want you. That's not freedom. The first quote is from Dr. Benjamin Rush. You probably have never heard of him, but Mr. Rush says, education is favorable to liberty. Freedom can only exist in the society of knowledge. Without learning, men are incapable of knowing their rights. And where learning is confined to a few people, liberty can neither be equal nor universal. So you have to know your rights before you can protect them. And he said that in 1786. Most of you do not own half the things that you think that you own. There is a concept known as allodial title. Allodial title means that you own it. I mean, the way that we think of when we say that you own something. Allodial title is generally referred to when we talk about land. If you own the land in allodial title, then you genuinely own the land. How many people went to a real estate agent when they bought their house? Okay, when you go to a real estate agent, are you buying property or real estate? There is a difference. When you buy real estate, you purchase everything from the ground up. You own the house, you own the trees, but you do not own the earth that it sits on. Can you go out in your backyard and drill for oil? No. Why? Because there's an ordinance against it? If it's your property, can you do whatever you want with your property? And if I can't drill for oil in my backyard, then apparently I don't own the property. Do you pay property taxes? Why? Who are you paying property taxes to? If it's yours, why would you have to give somebody else money? And the truth of the matter is that you do not own the land. You own the house on top of the land, but you are renting the actual land. One of the fundamental problems in the United States is that the government has convinced us that we have certain privileges granted to us by the government. Excuse me, I have rights endowed to me by my Creator. Where does the government get power? We, the people, grant the government privileges. The power comes from us and goes to government, not the other way around. The police officer is uneducated and doesn't understand that. That's just kind of the way life is. And your life will be a whole lot easier if you get the driver's license and you get the license plate. That if you want easy, go along with the flow. If you want freedom, you're going to have to buck the system. Freedom is not free. It's not easy. And as we are learning, freedom isn't for everybody. And I understand if you don't want to spend the time and the hassle and you don't want to be arguing with police officers on the side of the road, have a driver's license, get your license plate, keep everything up to date. Not everybody, is prepared or ready to go through that kind of hassle. Because it is. The government is going to make your life as miserable as they possibly can. Because you are not following the system. And that's what they want. They want you to follow the system. Because that way they can control you and put you where they want you. That's not freedom.
Freedom is not free.
Freedom is not free. It is a lot of work. Why do we have any government? Why don't we just say, well, let's get rid of government, we'll just have an anarchy? Why do we have any government at all? What's the purpose of government? To protect your rights. The Declaration of Independence says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So that the purpose of government is to secure the rights. Well, in a hypothetical situation, let's assume that we all love each other, we're all friends, we just, hug and sway back and forth and sing Kumbaya. All right? If everybody loves each other, there's nothing for the government to do. It's only when I back over your mailbox and you want to start beating my brains out with a baseball bat that the government steps in and says, well, wait a minute, let's settle this peacefully. That's the only purpose for government. So, if you're going to have a constitution for Texas, the purpose of that government is to protect your rights. So you have to list what rights are being protected. That's why almost every state constitution lists the Bill of Rights first. The U.S. Constitution was basically backwards. They wrote the Constitution and they went, oh gosh, we kind of forgot. And so they added a Bill of Rights at the end. Kind of like a patch on the end, even before it really got started. Now, so if I have a right to do something, I don't require permission.